this is long overdue. The first person to make a guideline for how testing or showing a conspiracy, I call them conspiracy hypotheses. Because, again, from the previous notes of me reacting to the Dr. Rob Silas video by Cussing Fauci, touting, I would call it a hypothesis because theory, I would prefer sticking the word theory to mean, again, a scientifically acceptable general principle, body of principles often to explain phenomena, or an explanation, a philosophical proposition, or a philosophical theory, or an explanation to a body of facts and laws. So I'm going that I think the educated guess should just be a educated guess, and say and relegate that to the beginning of a hypothesis by turning it into a question. And if you want to take my subject my particular advocacies to the philosophical and scientific study of the meaning in the language known as a name others throw around horribly instead of saying phrases such as "that's a splitting of hairs," "that's trivial," "that's not a criticism," "that's meaningless," or arbitrary. Yes, the study is called semantics. And everyone still does that. It's a bit of a fuck ass, including myself, until I stopped. No, the thoughts are over with. Now you know why I say conspiracy hypotheses. First person to do a video like this I know of was an anarcho-capitalist content creator whom I absolutely appreciate, Mr. My Two Cents. There are issues with, and as of late, not too long ago, the WEF, mentioning the WEF, BlackRock, the Rothschilds, the State of Israel, which proves to the neocons were always part of the establishment, and the pro-Israel position has emphatically been part of the establishment. Which is why the gripers grifted off of it and trolled the shit out of Charlie Kirk and other ilk like him, including the yarmulke wearing prick who had probably has most likely had fantasies about cream pieing his sister, the fucking degenerate. The name I'm not mentioning here. I think a lot of you might fucking know already. It wasn't like the state socialist, but still, and I think he believes in that shit blindly out of an emotional, a place for, the reason you tend to lean left or status left or anarcho, quote unquote anarcho left, quote unquote lib left is either out of negative emotion or out of a blind sense of wanting to help others and having the heart in the right place, but thinking fucking wrong about everything. It's always the two, or variations of the two. I know that because I've dealt with enough of the motherfuckers to know that from firsthand. And yeah. Excuse me. Very nice on the throat too. Yes. The thing is, I was going through conspiracy theories, debunking them as a teenager through just raw deduction. I didn't know it was called Calls a realist logical deduction until I found the cocksucker dead. The Austrian School of Economics and looked at the founder known as Karl Menger. But I found him through F.A. Hayek and Ludwig von Mises, whom I found by discovering Thomas Sowell, but Walter E. Williams was the Hayekian economist that brought me to that direction. Yes, chocolate-skinned men introduced me to economics. What a shocker! A smart black man, oh my God! If you couldn't tell I was being facetious, you got brain damage. Just saying. Of course, there's guys like that out there. Look at Lonnie fucking Johnson, the inventor of the Super Soaker. Invented a whole new engine thermodynamic cycle. Fucking brilliant guy. Point is, I didn't know that's what it was called. It was a causal realist logical deduction. I did not know it was called that. I just knew of the word deduction because I knew about Sherlock Holmes as a kid. But I didn't know that's what it was called, what I was doing. But I was nuking them already at a young age when I would hear about them. And then throughout my teens, I was nuking them in my own head, thinking this doesn't work because so on and so forth. But there's a rule of thumb. I've always said 99.7% of conspiracy hypotheses are junk. But even though they're junk, they might have a small grain of truth, or even 2 to 3 to several grains of truth to them, but are not exactly as said. But that still doesn't make them right. It still means they're fundamentally fucking wrong. But how would you go about a test? Well, let me go over the 7. I added the 7th criteria to the 6 that Mr. My Two Cents went over in his first video, but called it 3 mistakenly. There are 6 criteria from the same book source he used. I will link that description below and his original video. These 7 criteria of conspiracy theories that keep them conspiracy hypotheses. I see I have to correct myself there. These were the ones already talked about. I already said who that was. I added the 7th one on the 6th. I said that here just now. I'm reading down to it. If they fail even just one of these criteria, you can deduce them to a more likely simple explanation through Occam's and Hanlon's razors. Here are the tests. Is there a motive such as power, wealth, sex, or other strong motive or incentive that's up their strength? Say a vision or utopian vision or something. That would be if it's strong enough and they believe in it enough. That's an incentive. That's an incentive that can just as easily rival power, wealth, sex, or control. 2. That was my bro laughing his ass off in the background. Please don't mind that. He's having a good time. 2. A small number of conspirators, because the more that know, the less likely it's a secret, because it is more likely that someone who knows will squeal due to either a lack of pressure, not having a shared common goal that's not just wealth, power, sex, or control, or some type of extreme visions that they agree to and are going to follow. Thorough and immediate communications. It's a key, because conspirators are unable to determine if their partners in crime, partners in crime have already given up the truth, that they are far more likely to say something in an effort to save themselves from punishment or if they feel that they're getting fucked over, they're going to willingly turn themselves over and rat out the motherfuckers in order to save face, or in order to get revenge, and throw middle fingers their way, middle finger missiles at their way by ratting them out. Four, shorter the time span the better, because lies are hard enough to tell once. They are even more difficult to repeat consistently over a long period of time. It's easier to repeat the truth, but still you can fuck up on even doing that properly. We all do it at some point. We always mess up something about the truth when we repeat it enough times, but it's far harder to do that than to keep consistently telling the same lie over. It's infinitely more difficult. Well, not infinite, but let's say let's say quintillions of times harder. I would just pull that out my ass and say that, just to emphasize how much harder it is. For this reason, the shorter the conspiracy, the better. The ideal conspiracy would only have two conspirators. One of the conspirators would kill the other right after the crime. That's a conspiracy that would be awfully hard to break. Oh yeah, and by the way, and at the same time when the UN started saying, don't mention BlackRock, don't mention the Rothschilds, don't mention Israel, don't mention the WEF, you know. I'll post those screenshots at the end of the video. If you as the feds here in the divided states of corporate cuckoldry rose out of the remnants of the long dead republic, and you can call me a knucklehead for saying that the republic is effectively dead in practice.
Tell that to what's been happening for the last 100 fucking years, you stupid, brain-dead piece of fucking goddamn sack of shit. Tell that to the fucking politics we're at now. Suck one. Concede or go cope and seethe elsewhere, you sack of shit.
Now that's over with. The ideal conspiracy I was saying would involve two conspirators, one killing the other right after. That would be incredibly hard to break. Now, for criteria 2, 3, and 4, the way modern technology has been deliberately used in certain aspects of modernity that incentivize centralization excessive artificially and in government structures monopolize and gain power at the expense of the rest of us. And increasing their parasitism. Even though this has happened many times in history, there are certain aspects about modernity and the way tech is being deliberately misused at our expense, instead of supplementing us and boosting us along, that can actually give the conspirator groups wiggle room. Enough to expand out in the world, take longer to concoct the conspiracy to some degree, and increase the number of conspirators that can get away with it. Unfortunately, that is a valid problem. But it's not perfect, it's not infinite, and the potential can only stretch these can only stretch against these 3 criteria I just listed, as well as actually the first 4 criteria only so far before it's undone. But also laying it out in the open, but framing it in a different way to sigh out the masses into blindly following, say, it can't be that bad, right? That's a good way to trick people to think being complacent with it. That also is a way to bend the rules of conspiracy, hypotheses. And then, that's another way to stretch the conspiracy attempt to effort that might be there again. That might be a way to stretch things out and kind of bend these 4 criteria and work, kind of loophole them in certain areas. That's also another valid strategy. That is an actual problem. But again, it's not perfect. It has its limitations too. It's not absolute, but it does help a possible conspirator get away with shit like that more easily. The way technology can help keep communications, allow decentralization of conspirators into subgroups across the planet and across a country, and so on and so forth. Or just leaving it out in the open for people to openly see, but frame it differently so they'll be complacent with it by tricking them. These are all valid criticisms. But again, they're not absolute, and they have their limitations. Number 5. Significant relational connections. When all the conspirators are connected to in deep and meaningful ways, say relation, like familial, some kind of kinship and camaraderie of some fucking demented satanic way. So pseudo camaraderie, I would, I guess, argue. Or if they have a shared vision that they all willingly follow one another for, or band together strongly over, or something like that, which again plays into incentive. The stronger the bond, when they're connected in these deep and meaningful ways with these commonalities that bring them together to allow this cohesion to exist, it's much harder to convince one of them to give up the other. When all the conspirators have these things, I said a shared vision or family, blood kin that get along with each other, as examples. 2 of the biggest examples. The task is nearly impossible. The greater the cohesive structure that brings them together, the visionary views they have in common, or the stronger the relational bond between the conspirators, the greater the possibility of fucking success. 6. Little or no pressure, or too much pressure against them. Because few suspects confess to the truth until they recognize the jeopardy of failing to do so, or they feel like they got fucked by the other conspirators and want to get even with them by ratting them out. Unless pressure to confess or have the incentive to confess on their end and willingly and you offer ways to help them do it, to goad them into doing it, to one up their fucking former co-conspirators, the conspirators you catch will continue lying. Pressure does not have to be physical in nature. When suspects fear incarceration or condemnation from their peers, or if they feel like, again, I can't keep repeating this enough, if they feel like they're taking they feel like they're getting screwed over or shammed or bullshit or betrayed, they will respond to an effort to either save face or get even with them and save their own skin. This pressure goes up as the number, or these factors, the pressure aspect goes higher, even with all the shit I threw in about the ability to grow because of the way technology is done. Certain aspects of modernity are horrible, and the centralization of technology arbitrarily and that all, and the communication capabilities they all have, and the ability to allow them to decentralize into pocket factions to carry out a greater set of conspiracies or a single big one. The diversity and spread outness and immediate communication efforts do offset number 6 a little bit, but it does not help. These things I listed and just micro tangents about do not help number 6 nearly as much as criteria 1, 2, 3, and 4, because the pressures or the lack thereof are going to rise. Or the counter incentives are going to rise. The counter pressure is going to rise. You're not stopping that. 7. Can the potential mass conspiracy efforts can be deduced as mere incompetence? Which is Occam's and Hamlin's razor in practice. If so, why? Let's hear it. If not, why not? And with that being said, I'm going to show you my little life under the glower green sun. This is a meme we, myself and 3 other hard libertarian peoples, actually multiple other hard libertarian peoples, co-invented together when I made a remark saying Vosh is such a glow in the dark. He glows like a green star at night, and me and a bunch of others co-created the meme Life Under the Green Sun. Anyway, this is some of this shit I'm talking about. This is, they're calling it, oh, the world is not secretly manipulated by the global elite. This is what they're trying to fearmonger and manipulate you into forced compliance by saying, we're doing it, we don't want you talking about it. So I'm going to say, fuck you, I'm going to ignore what you say and do the opposite, because you fucking are notoriously manipulative. You've shown it. The UN has declared war on conspiracy theory and worrying, yada yada yada. They warned not to mention George Soros. I forgot to mention him. Rothschilds and the State of Israel, and must not be linked to any alleged conspiracies. The Jewish Congress, the World Jewish Congress, the European Commission, and Twitter. And they're doing the think before sharing campaigns. Could you guys glow at my face and spit on it any harder? Fuck you. Thank you for confirming Mr. Norman Finkelstein correct. Thank you for showing that Fox had every incentive to kick. What was his name? Newt Gingrich off of air live on faux news called quote unquote Fox for fucking bullshit, for calling out that George Soros may have been a funneler of money to BLM and Antifa when he was burning cities, burning streets down, ruining people's lives for months. Oh yeah, this is the violent militia extremist, by the way. If you call yourself a boog boy or boog girl, if you use the Punisher skull, if you're pro Second Amendment, if you quote the founding fathers, if you use the electrical resistor symbol of ohms for electrical shit, if you identify as anarcho-capitalist, if you identify with warrior culture, if you identify with this here, the Greek phrase that translates to come and take it, or come and take 'em, or if you blatantly say come and take 'em, if you identify with a black flag, if you quote Thomas Jefferson about the tree of liberty need to be watered with the blood of tyrants, oh well, I just put myself on it. If you dabble in Revolutionary War imagery, or the Betsy Ross flag, or the Gadsden flag, the historical American symbol representing gun rights and smaller government, I wish I was making this up. This is FBI leak. This is, Veritas kind of confirmed this shit. It's fucking horrid. You say, I became unreasonable. His name was Duncan Lemp. Well-regulated American militia. We are everywhere. Expect us. I will not comply. All enemies. Look at these quotes. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. You quote all of these. If you mention Ruby Ridge, you mention Waco, you mention Duncan Lemp, Ashley Babbitt, Marvin Himayer, Vicky Weaver. I might have mispronounced half these names. I'm sorry. 3%ers, American contingency, oath keepers. You mentioned about cops keeping their oaths. You mentioned these people, the Crusaders, Stephen Carrillo, Timothy McVeigh. You know, this is the craziest shit. Oh shit, this is also something yeah. I think you get the point, folks. But it wasn't, I swear, it was legit. And every Biden voting fuck contributed to it, and they'll never admit they're lying pieces of shit. You are a militia violent extremist with any of these things. If you identify with actual liberty and actual human rights and the right to defend yourself, you are an MVE. Troll the fuck out of them. Hashtag ban all private jets. And with that, I bid you adieu.